Hello, my name is Stephen Vereb. I am from Erie, Pennsylvania originally, but I've resided in Washington, D.C. for the last 20 plus years. Before we get started, I just really wanted to say how flattered I am to have been asked to give some insight into my relationship and how I've come to meet and know Justin Donald. It's truly an honor to be able to say a few words today. So I came into contact with Justin probably a few months back. It was by way of a mastermind group that I was working in. It was a mastermind group full of franchisees, and it was headed, or is headed, I should say, by a guy named Eric Van Horn. And Eric came into our group one day and said, "Hey everybody, I'm doing some interesting deals. The investment club that I'm involved in, we're talking about this deal, raising money to acquire a large, well-known brand and their assets out of bankruptcy. If anybody has interest, let me know, and I'll send you a Zoom link." So I raised my hand, said that sounds interesting. Wanted to learn more about it, and lo and behold, I received a Zoom link to a recorded investment club call that was headed by a fellow named Justin Donald. So I watched that call, and the investment itself was very intriguing. I had never really seen or heard anything like it, whereby a company would be filing bankruptcy and unloading all of its brick and mortar, and yet someone would come in and buy the brand name and essentially maintain its IP and customer lists and website and rebuild it from an e-commerce perspective. So that was very intriguing. But what really intrigued me throughout that call was the way Justin handled his investment club and just the nature and the banter that took place. And that caused me to want to get to know who this Justin Donald guy was a little bit more. And so I decided to, what some folks would refer to as cyber stalking, I call due diligence. I decided to get to work and see what I could find on this Justin Donald fella, because he was just really impressive on this Zoom call. Lo and behold, I did my search on Justin Donald, Google search, and found a bunch of material and just started going through it. Some of the ones that really caught my eye, there was an entrepreneur.com article titled "The Investment World's New Warren Buffett," I believe it was called. And I'm going, wait a second, this guy has his name in an article in the same headline as Warren Buffett. Okay, maybe my intuition was legit. This guy is sharp. Continued to do a little bit more digging and found a few podcasts, which I proceeded to listen to every single one that I could find while I was walking my dog in the morning during my morning routine. And the more I continued to dig in on Justin Donald, the more impressed I was. The somewhat ironic thing was one of those podcasts was hosted by a guy named John Vroman, who is the founder of an organization named Front Row Dads. And this was an organization that was referred to me by a friend as a group that I seem to have similar interest level with and similar philosophies, and they thought it might be a group I'd be interested in. So imagine my delightful surprise when one of the podcasts that I dug up was with none other than Justin Donald. And so, this fella is also involved in this group. And every turn it seemed to make, the more I found that he was continually connected to highly successful people that had a ton of character, were family folks first, and just a high level of integrity. Two other folks that I recognized that he was connected to, one is a guy named Hal Elrod, who wrote The Miracle Morning, and another one is a highly successful franchisee named Ryan Casey from Orange Theory Fitness, who I met through this mastermind group. So not necessarily trying to play the name game here, but it was just really, these degrees of separation and levels of success and just guys that I really looked up to. Justin was connected to all of them. And so I deduced that he, was probably the guy that I thought he was when I saw that podcast. And for me, it's always character first. There's lots of smart people out there, but trust is hugely important to me, as well as a similar social value system. And from what I could tell from the early due diligence that I had done, aka cyber stalking, and I'd also asked Ryan Casey and some others, about Justin, and to a man, every single one of them said he's just a really, really good dude. So that inspired me to take the next step, and that was to reach out to Justin directly and ask if there was any opportunity for me to be involved in his investment club and to sit in. And he very graciously told me about the next one that was coming up and sent me the link. And so I sat in on that call, and things proceeded and progressed from there. In terms of Justin's investment style, what really resonated with me is when I listen to him, he always says things like cash on cash return and protect your downside and minimize the risk. And I've been involved in some of these calls where they've been different business opportunities and different business models, some in different industries. He keeps a similar philosophy, yet he continues to go down it very methodically. He wrings out the risk first. He wants to make sure that the downside is protected. Sometimes that's in the form of diversification. Sometimes that's in the form of accelerating the cash off the table, so to speak, within a 2-year period or 3-year period. Sometimes it comes in the form of cash bonus, equity kickers, warrants. He definitely showed me really quickly he wasn't a one-trick pony. He really understood the deal and understood what he could get, and then would push the envelope and get a little bit more. And I love that. I love that about him. And every time I listen to him talk and teach, I continue to learn more and more, which, that's what it's all about, right? Trying to become a better version of yourself each and every day. And Justin absolutely lives by that mantra. To take it back to the podcast that he had done with John Vroman, it was titled "Working for Family Freedom with Justin Donald," and again, that really resonated with me because I've always tried to pride myself on being a dad first, and providing a better life for my family. And the more due diligence I did with Justin, and then came across that group, Front Row Dads, that's exactly what their mantra is. It's being a family man first, a dad first, and a dad that happens to be involved in businesses or have a passion for investing. So it really seemed as though the stars were somewhat aligned. It was a bit of an eerie feeling that I came into contact with Justin, and I can't tell you how blessed and truly grateful that I am. He's just an amazing dude. To know Justin, and I continue to get to know him. I haven't known him for more than maybe a few months, but he's that guy that you feel like you've known your whole life. He puts you at ease right away. There's a certain comfort level. He's authentic. He's not pretentious in the least. I mean, as successful as he is, and the successful people that he's connected to, there's just not a shred of arrogance to him. I love that about him. He is gracious with his time. He's gracious with his knowledge, and he's extremely generous with his network, with his Rolodex, if you will. One of the conversations he and I had early on, when I knew that he was a guy I was going to continue to stay involved with and connected to, we'd had a conversation about a strategy called the bank replacement strategy, which uses whole life insurance to essentially build your own bank. And I'd been working on this strategy for the better part of a decade, and I could count on one hand the amount of people that I'd talked to that actually got it and understood what I was talking about. And within a sentence, Justin was like, "Oh yeah, I do that, and this is what I do, and I've been doing this." And it was, not to be cheesy, but it was sort of a match made in heaven, because for the first time, somebody didn't look at me like I had 15 heads and made me feel like, I tend to take a contrarian viewpoint, but it was very comforting to know that somebody with Justin's education base and experience in investing, that he was on board with that strategy, and I really knew it was a great fit from there. Not to mention, as soon as Justin recognized that I had some knowledge about that, he immediately made a recommendation and a referral to his advisor that helped him set up his policies and his strategies. And in true Justin form, when I was impressed with his knowledge about it, he completely deferred all the accolades directly to his advisor that he speaks very highly of. Justin's always very complimentary and graciously accepts compliments, but end of the day, he's just the word authentic, genuine come to mind, and again, character, full of integrity and trust. And ultimately, at the end of the day, he values relationships. The way he talks to his investment club, the way he educates, he just really takes an interest in everyone and has an interest in everybody, doing well. And what I really enjoy is he comes in, he says, "Hey, I'm doing this deal. This is the risk. This is, what I've done to protect the downside. Here's the upside. This is why I like it." Again, it's a very methodical approach. And he never talks above us, even though sometimes there's some pretty heavy concepts. He does whatever he can to break it down in those situations. And, he just loves to teach. He loves to share. He loves to educate. And I'm very, very fortunate to have been on the receiving end of his willingness to coach and to teach. I guess one last thing I would say is, through these deals, I've never felt any pressure to have to do any of these deals. There is, Justin basically says, "Hey, I've negotiated these deals. Here's the terms. If you guys want in, great. If you don't, no worries." He understands that everybody's risk parameters are different. Everyone's working with a different budget. And he just really loves the sport and helping everybody become more successful. I really think he believes in the adage that a rising tide lifts all boats. The end of the day, Justin, within a very short window of time, has had a tremendous impact on me. Prior to meeting Justin, I had reached a level of stagnation, to be honest with you. My business was humming along. It was doing fine. It was providing an adequate amount of cash flow for me to live the life I wanted to live. But I stopped growing. And when I met Justin, he re-inspired me to grow again, to go back to being smart. I don't even know that he knows that, but I owe a lot to Justin just for his quiet leadership and inspiration, and for just being the dude that he is. So, Justin, I want to thank you for all the leadership and advice and leading by example that you've provided. And I'm super excited for you to launch your new website, and I can't wait to read the book when it comes out. So thank you for everything you do for me and for our club, and for Front Row Dads. Best of luck in all that you do. You deserve the best, man. Cheers.